Wassalam Allah wa Rasulullah. Inshallah, everybody should be able to see me and hear me well on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and the other social platforms that we are engaged upon right now. I'm inside the studio and it looks like it's working pretty good right here to me. All right, let's get started. This is the stories of the prophets of Allah. And I enjoy teaching today's story because it's something that I wondered about all my life. I remember how as a kid, when I was in elementary school, back in those days, it was the 60s, nobody knew what Islam was or Muslims. They thought all they knew back then was these Elijah Muhammad people who were not Muslims, okay? But anyway, I remember being in elementary school and there was a song that the kids that they used to play in the music class called Ezekiel. And it was Ezekiel saw the wheel way up in the middle of the year. Ezekiel saw the wheel way in the middle of the year. And I was like, who the heck is Ezekiel? And I remember one day, because I was only in the 3rd grade or the 2nd grade, I remember I asked the music teacher, I said, who's Ezekiel? She said, you don't know who the prophets are? I said, yes, I know about the prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I know about Moses, I know about Abraham. She said, you never heard of Ezekiel? I said, how do you say it in Arabic? She said, in what? She didn't know what I was talking about. I didn't know what she was talking about. So, but it stayed with me all my life. I always wondered, who was Ezekiel? Was it really a prophet? Well, I just figured out today that it's Hiskiel in Arabic. Ezekiel is Hiskiel, the name Hiskiel in Arabic. I said, oh, okay, so he was a prophet. So I said, well, let me do his story today so that because this will be a lesson for me to learn about what was the reel or the wheel he sold or something. I don't know. The song was something about him sewing a wheel or a reel. I don't know. But the story I did of him today, of course, everything that I do is taken from the Quran or the Hadith. There's no mention in the Quran or any mention in the Hadith about a wheel or a reel. So I still don't know what that had to do with anything. But that's the story I'm going to present to everyone today. So let me put the PowerPoint up on the screen so everybody can see. And again, I hope if you guys should not be able to see my PowerPoint, I hope somebody have that common sense to let me know. So I'm not just sitting here. I go through a lot of problems putting this stuff together for y'all. Subhanallah. Okay, so this is the story of Ezekiel. Ezekiel as told to us by the Quran and the authentic Hadith. All right. This is what Allah says in the interpretation, the meaning. Did you, O Muhammad, not think about those who went forward from their homes, 1,000 of them, fearing death? And Allah said to them, die. And then he restored them back to life. Truly, Allah is full of bounty to mankind, but most men do not think. Okay, in this verse, Allah is referring to Ezekiel. Ezekiel. Muhammad ibn Ishaq, he tells us that Ezekiel was the prophet that came after Joshua. Remember who Joshua was. Joshua was the man who was with Moses. And when Moses was denied entrance into the promised land, Allah made Joshua the prophet to lead the people in. So after Joshua, that's when Ezekiel came. And these were all prophets sent to the Israelis, to the Jews. And the people had fled from Palestine out of fear of plague. And they had settled on a plateau of a mountain. And when they left Palestine, freeing from this plague, Allah told them, die you all. And they all died. And this is why I tell you, I know Palestine is in the news again today. May Allah make it easy for the believers over there, you know, and to make, you know, it's sad what's going on. But unfortunately, guys, what's going on in Palestine has been going on since back in these days. And it's not going to stop. You know, the prophet told us it's not going to stop until Jesus comes. So what's happening over there, this is part of their history. It's been going on since these prophets, since before Moses. Because Ezekiel came before Moses. No, after Moses. Because Moses came first, then Joshua, then Ezekiel. So it's right. It has been going on since Moses. Well, they say it started with David and Solomon. So all this stuff going on over there with the Israelites has been going on for centuries, and it's not going to stop. It's a sad situation, but Allah is in control. As Muslims, we have to learn to accept the qadr of Allah. We make dua for the believers, asking Allah to keep them strong in their iman, and asking Allah to help them to deal with their ordeal, you know, but we can't change it. Let it go, move on. Okay? But here you can see after Joshua, the Palestinians left Palestine out of fear of a plague. And because they left out of a fear of a plague, Allah commanded them to die. And they all died. Because they shouldn't have left. And then a few centuries went by. After these people fled from Palestine out of fear of a plague, and Allah made them die, centuries went by. And then Ezekiel, who was a man, he was walking by and he happened to see the bones of these graves. And he said, what is this? He saw bones like this picture. And a voice said to him, do you want Allah to resurrect these people? And you can watch? Because Ezekiel was a prophet. So he said, yes. I would love to see Allah resurrect these people and bring them back to life. So then Ezekiel was commanded. Allah had the angel Jibril command him to tell the bones to join one another again. So he told the bones, join one another. And they did. And then the angel Jibril told him, tell the flesh to cover the bones. So the flesh then covered the bones of the people. And then he called them by the power of Allah. And the people stood up back to life. They were back reunited in their bodies. Allah put their souls back in their bodies after bringing their bodies back to life. And the people stood up and praised Allah. And they glorified him, you know, for bringing them back. According to Ibn Abbas, the place where this happened was a place called Demardan. And this is supposed to be one of the places. Allah knows best. But I put this picture up here because this was the plateau where they claim this happened at. Allah knows best. Okay? So what happened was that these people were afraid of that plague that Allah had sent. So they ran while a group of the people stayed back in the village and died. The angel of death had called out to the survivors at the command of Allah to die, and they all died. And of course, this is Ezekiel passing them by, and he was wondering where these bodies, what came from. He was thrilled to see the power of Allah over them. And Allah taught him how to raise, how he raises the dead back up. Listen to what Allah says in the interpretation, the meaning. Call, O you bones. Allah commands you to put on flesh and blood and the clothes in which they had died. And a voice said, Allah commands you to call the bodies to rise, and they rose. When they were returned to life, they said, blessed are you, O Allah, and all praise is yours. So, you know, this is what Allah allowed to happen with Ezekiel. Remember, every prophet that Allah mentions by name, these are the best of all the 124,000 prophets sent. And he gave every prophet something unique to them. This was what was unique to Ezekiel. He was allowed to call the dead to come back to life. Okay? This was something unique to him. Okay? And Ibn Abbas tells us that there were 4,000 people that were resurrected. On this plateau, there were 4,000 people who Allah had caused to die here. And after telling Ezekiel how to resurrect them, they numbered 4,000. And in regards to plague, when Umar was the caliph over the Muslims, he decided to go to Syria. And when he reached the city of Sarj, one of the leaders of his army, Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah, they met him and told him, you don't want to go to Syria because a plague has broken out there. Allah has sent a plague. And Umar remembered the prophet saying, if a plague ever comes to the country where you are living, don't leave. Stay there. Because if you leave, you may spread it. And if you hear that a plague is in a certain city or a certain part of the world, don't go there so you don't catch it. Okay? And this is why Allah was angry with the Palestinians. Because once again, they disobeyed him. Allah kept showing miracle after miracle after miracle to the Palestinians, and they kept on rejecting him over and over and over and over again. They disobeyed him. They left. So we don't know how long Ezekiel stayed amongst the people, the Israelis who arose up from the dead. We don't know how long because Allah doesn't tell us, and the Prophet Muhammad didn't either. Okay, but anyway, we do know that after Ezekiel died, the Israelis, they deviated away from the true way of life as they always did. And Allah sent Elijah as the next prophet. So that's what we do know. And that's it. That's all that's mentioned about this wonderful prophet. So I still don't know what Ezekiel saw with the real way up in the middle of the year, but this ain't got nothing. I know he was allowed to, he was shown how Allah resurrects the dead. And Allah told him to speak the words to resurrect the dead. This is all we know. And he stayed amongst those 4,000 people, until he died, So that's the story of Prophet Ezekiel. Next week, inshallah, I'll do another prophet. Are there any questions about this?